Good evening. It's Wednesday night and it's time for our monthly live stream. It was actually time 4 minutes ago, but slight technical hitch in that we're in the middle of nowhere and our internet's terrible and it just had an absolute fit. But yeah, we've got a bit of a varied evening. We've got a few, we actually thought ahead for once basically. So we've got Dave's car behind us, which we'll talk through. And then we've got a few little bits and bobs to show people based on the questions we've had and also just general bit of knowledge, really. Should we start with Dave's car?
Let's start with Dave's car because it's mega and it's behind us. Obviously, the video is not doing justice, but we finished it. It's been here a while, but it's all good to go. Booked into Brands Hatch tomorrow, which is our sort of local circuit, not too local for Dave, but it's a nice little testing circuit, isn't it, Brands?
Yeah, I think it's good as well. It's not the fastest track or anything, but it's quite a good measure of sort of power band, really. I think that's some good varied speed corners, so you get to use all elements of the engine's power, which will be good.
Yeah. As Dave just commented, he's seriously excited.
As are we.
As are we. We share that. So yes, very much looking forward to getting out there and getting Dave back in the seat where he's spent so many hours doing track days sort of last year and the years before.
And it's amazing, actually. Having pulled this engine apart, even people we know, Chris that now works for us, has seen this car on track. Obviously, probably never thought he'd end up being so involved with it, but it used to absolutely fly with an engine that really was quite tired.
Yeah,
I was in a bit of a
there wasn't a lot in that didn't need some tender love and care.
Yeah. So now it's done. Make some good dyno figures. I think better figures to come on different dynos and whatnot, which is a conversation for a whole other day. But it's going to absolutely fly tomorrow. I can't wait to see what Dave thinks of it.
Yeah. Should we have a talk through? Start at the back end of the car.
Yeah, why not?
Because obviously, even though we've just rebuilt the engine on it and done quite a few other bits previously, Dave's put a lot of effort into the car.
Yeah, we've been
to upgrade it in all areas, really.
Been supplying bits for this car for quite a few years now. So, I think it was already a well set up track car, but it's gone to a whole new level really in the last few years. So, start right at the back or inside really. The whole lot's got a really nice roll cage.
Yeah, it's a nice cage.
And it's probably done, I guess, with a track day in mind, in that it doesn't have double door bars and things like that. So it's not ridiculous, but just really nicely done. Put together really nicely. And ties into the rear subframe from memory. Seen too many of them that I can't.
It's a nice cage, pulling into sort of all the right places, really.
Nice gussets as well.
Yeah, everyone loves a gusset. Decent welding. So the cage inside's nice. Obviously, it's fully stripped out. Carbon door cards. Still got the original dash and everything.
Yeah, plastic rear
quite
window
nice.
as well,
Plastic rear window.
Still got wood trim.
Yeah,
which is mega. Recaro seats, say belt harnesses, steering wheel. Come on, what brand that is? That's bad. I literally just sat in it.
I'll pop in there.
It's just got all the right bits. It's OMP. There you go. I don't think anything on this car is perhaps part. Well, no, I'm lying. Everything in this car is just really, really nice, but it's not. It's so easy to go overboard with it, but it's just. They've done a really nice job of it. The whole rear end there's no rubber in it anymore. It's all completely solid bushes, all Millway Motorsport parts, upper and lower control arms are adjustable billet items.
We've actually got Dave commenting on all the bits, so we don't forget. Obviously, a work short shifter in there as well, which really enhances the driving experience. Literally everything on the rear end is bearing, trailing on bushes of bearings. There is no rubber in the rear end. The front end, I think Dave mentioned to us, he's sort of still run away. Obviously we're pretty excited to get away with it. And, inside. So moving to back end of the car, obviously Ben mentioned lots of Millway goodies underneath. Pretty nice exhaust system that's running along as well to really add to the whole lot. And obviously moving on, we sort of venture into the engine bay, which is where all our time and effort has gone to recently, and we'll start sort of actually delving into the engine. So obviously these are a 86.4 mil standard bore, so it's been overboard, obviously all done in-house up to 87 mil.
high compression pistons. The head's had a bit of work, some recut seats. So we're looking at about mid 12 compression ratio. So this is definitely a fruity lump, and that's also been paired with a lovely Carbonius airbox, which the intake noise on this, especially when it comes on cam, from what we've seen when it was getting running on the rollers, is just something else. So very excited to actually get in a real world scenario and hear it tearing on the wall at Brands tomorrow. And what else have we got? Obviously, bodywork wise is Ben. I've just lost it. I'm lost without you, Ben. Ben is now returning after his dog decided to do a bolt across the yard.
Yeah, escape artist. Right, where were you?
Well, I probably rushed through the engine a bit too quickly, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, it really is a lovely lump and some good components in there. Shrick cams, like a...
Yeah. It's I'll run through it quickly again. So 12.5 to 1 J pistons, SP components rods, cranks fully dynamically balanced, DKM clutch and flywheel. What else have we got?
Obviously, all new guides in the head as well.
Yeah.
The head was fully overhauled in-house. A bit of flow optimization into the seats as well, which will help it sort of breathe, especially at the top end. It's quite a revvy motor now.
Yeah, big fun. Strict 296-degree cams, intake and exhaust. Well, it's so difficult. I think what's always difficult to explain on video, or you read something on the net and you see an engine's got these pistons, these cams, that, and really it's not. An engine is far more than the sum of its parts. So there's so much work in that isn't just something you can write down on paper, really.
Yeah.
Much as we try often, it's optimizing the valve seats and things like that. It's not just
take for instance the Vanos. I mean, if you just got all the bits machined up on that engine and just assembled it without doing all the proper checks, when the Vanos started fully actuating, the valves would hit the pistons because of the duration of the cams. So we obviously had to calculate all that and machine up a couple of restrictors in the Vanos units just so we could avoid.
Yeah, which is a whole load of maths.
A lot of maths and plotting and working out piston to crank position and all sorts to really get the numbers we needed and work out sort of what limit we could push to still get the most out of it. Yeah,
which we arrived at, and it's it's got a really, really healthy power band. It's with those cams, it's below 3. It's drivable, but that's not what it's built for. But above 3, it's absolutely ripped, for want of a better word. It's it's more than just the numbers. It's as with everything, it's area under the curve, and I think Dave's gonna really enjoy it. Yeah,
and we're not on standard management either, of course.
No.
We've got standalone ECU on it from SCS components. So a lovely bit of kit, which makes it a bit more. So the car went up there and obviously got put on their rollers and really tuned in and mapped according to the spec of the build that we've given them. So it really is optimized.
Yeah. And with that Carbonius airbox as well, the induction noise is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mentioned that's just absolutely there are you get a car from time to time that gets you inside and gets you whoa. Yeah, this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, stood near it on the dyno was quite an experience. So seeing it actually flying around Brands Hatch is going to be really cool. The exhaust net as well is a nice bit of kit. I think that was the same. I think it was AutoWorks who also did the cage in it. And it sounds perfect. And with that engine, I think it sounds actually quite different to how it did before. Still an S50 sound, but it's just something else to it. It's,
I think Dave's going to have quite a surprise.
On I'd like to think so.
It's definitely a different animal to the one it was. Of course, if you have got any questions about the car or you want to see any bits a little bit closer, we can try and wiggle the laptop around. We are only on a webcam tonight, but we can try and show you if you want to see the car in a little bit more detail. Just comment in the box below. We can show that to you.
Yeah, I should quite like to know. I don't know if Dave knows exactly what it weighs, but it can't be all that much. And as he's commented, he's got carbon fibre doors and bonnet to go on it. So that weight is only going to go a fair bit down as well. It's it's quite a lightweight machine.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'll be sad to see
It's been
it
a while,
go.
but yeah, I'm sort of sad that it won't be around the workshop any longer.
Yeah.
At least it's going to a home that we know it's going to get used. Because Dave is so passionate about getting out on track, and especially now that the summer's finally coming and the weather's getting a little
just over 1,200 kilos, so it's decent.
Yeah,
it's a lightweight machine. I mean, it's got the power to not have a problem with E46 M3s, even that stripped down one on, probably a good minimum of 100 kilos less than them. It's going to be interesting. I don't know what else is out tomorrow. If anyone's watching who is at Brands tomorrow, do come in and let us know what you'll be running, and feel free to come say hello. It's just such a mega car.
It's better.
So,
keep an eye out.
150 kilos lighter. So, easily sub 1,100 kilos.
Yeah, it's going to be a rapid car, especially the weight saving.
Yeah. We have had a few questions this week. We kind of, as we always do, slim them down a bit. Otherwise, we end up explaining the same thing over and over again. So there's one that was a far more in-depth write-up of it. So we've chosen that one.
What we'll do, I'll read through the question in full, and then we will discuss in a presentable manner. Hey, I was curious about the ACL race bearings, more specifically the bearing to journal clearance and how it affects performance, oil pressure, lubrication, engine longevity, etc. The ACL race main crank bearings I purchased are described as standard sizing, so I assume clearance should be the same as stock. But having measured using plastic gauge, it's going back as out of OEM spec, 60 to 70 microns across the range on all 6. I'm guessing he's maybe not measuring the thrust. This seems like roughly 25 microns over OEM spec. I understand these are ACL and they calculate those figures are right on the looser side of what they say is okay. I'm just curious if this is correct and if running these clearances will be okay for what will predominantly be a road car. I'm using ALP main stud kit, talk to their spec. I haven't reached the conrods yet, but would it be the same for those? Right, so we'll start obviously with main bearings, as you said. We'll talk about his measuring technique first, shall we?
Yeah. In short, plastic gauge is a good confirmation technique, but I would never really suggest relying on it solely. There's so much to this that it's difficult to know where to start, really. So plastic gauge, the proper way of measuring something is with something like this. So this is a ball mic. So you're measuring that depth there very precisely. You'd set that to essentially what you'd expect to see, and then that'll show you your tolerance outside of that. So plastic gauge works well. It's not the most precise thing, but it's precise enough. But you're only measuring, if you've got a journal, you're only measuring across one plane, so you're measuring top to bottom. And it doesn't give you a whole picture of the shape of either your main line sort of bore in your block, so essentially the holes that the bearing's actually sitting in. And it just doesn't give you a complete picture of the shape, with and without a bearing, essentially. So you don't know if you're measuring a round circle around a round circle. You could be measuring an oval around a circle, in which case your clinical might look good or bad, but actually it's because it's squashed up or opened up around the plane in which you're measuring.
And of course, for those that don't know, plastic gauge is fundamentally a very soft piece of thin plastic that you'd put in your bearing clearance, tighten everything down to the specified torque in the correct sequence, and then undo it all. And fundamentally, that bit of plastic would have been crushed. By comparing the crushed bit of plastic to sort of a chart, you can see by the amount it's been crushed by the clearance that you've supposedly got in that space.
Yeah, which,
yeah, it's not the way we do it. We do use it here, but it's sort of as a safety measure, do all our mainline measuring, big end measuring. We measure the housings first, check they're within spec, then we place the bearings in the housing, torque it up, check the spec. Obviously, of course, every time that something uses a stretch bolt, the bolt's then replaced. Yeah, so looking at your result, obviously you're going to want to answer. ACLs do generally run a little bit larger because for a longevity thing, it's far better to have a little bit more clearance than it to be too tight. So the aftermarket bearing manufacturers generally always go a bit looser, sorry, because yeah, as I said, it's better to be loose. It's going to run, but they're just going to wear out.
You'll generally see,
just seize up.
Old sort of an old rule of thumb is that you add a little bit of clearance for a racer engine, which obviously they're a race bearing. So we probably wouldn't really want to comment on your clearance without going through the steps we've mentioned of measuring it all properly. I think Ash also mentioned using ARP main studs,
which is a bit of a worry. Yeah, they're not just you can't just order a set of ARP main studs, bang them in your block, and do the caps up, because you will likely see some distortion, and that's really where something sort of a ball mic does come in.
Yeah,
because you can bolt it all down and actually measure that housing and see if it's round, and if it has distorted them, then unfortunately it's going to be a case of machining the block to accept those ARP studs.
Yeah, which is something we've had to do on many a build. You could measure it and you could be lucky, but the chances are that you've got essentially a different clamping force there. It's much the same really with rods. It's the same principle. You've got a round bore there and bolts here, and the tighter you do up the bolts, the more it's going to affect that shape. Loose to tight, you'll find that actually moves a lot. So you have exactly the same thing where if you imagine that's your block and that's your cap, changing the force here is going to change the shape of that circle. So you really need to be aware of what you're measuring, how you're measuring it, and why, really. It does apply, I think, rods as well. We see so many where, let's go right from aftermarket rods that come without bolts.
Yeah.
It fills us with dread. So the way this rod has been made is that finish honing in there that sets that final sizing has been done with these exact bolts in it to the exact stretch figure. And that means when you take it apart, do it back up with these bolts to the stretch figure, that's then perfectly round again, bar any fault with it. But that's the theory, obviously. But then that's why you measure everything afterwards. So if you have a rod that comes without bolts, you don't know what bolt has been used for the finish honing. You don't know how tight it's been. It just, especially when they come in a sealed packet, you just know nothing about. You know nothing about how that has been produced and what bolts are in it, and the bolts are so critical to the shape. So if you ever see
in a factory in China where they're just bashing out thousands of rods a day, none of their tooling's calibrated well as well. So even if they were, trying to replicate clamping force of the original bolt, it's probably way out. Yeah, you're just going to see such an oval housing, or you're going to see high spots where it's sort of clamping unevenly. So there's a reason good rods are expensive. Yeah. That's because they're made with care and they're made in the proper way.
And it also then relates to the tooling you're using to refasten that.
Yeah.
So you can, a lot of bolt or rod manufacturers will give a torque spec, but that's not really the way to be doing it, because your torque will be so severely affected by the amount of lubrication on that thread. All threads should be clean, but any kind of, even like a lump of older lube that's gone a bit dry in there, something like that will severely affect it. Whereas if you're measuring the stretch of that fastener, you can't be wrong. It's the same clamping force every time, as long as the bolt's not sort of worn out and overused. So using that stretch technique gives you the perfect repeatable fastener sort of tightness and clamping force to make sure that's always round. I think bearings and bearing clearances are probably the biggest, or the whole engine's important, but they're the most technical part of an engine build in many ways.
It's probably, the amount, there's a lot of time and effort goes into preparing an engine in the sort of blueprinting stages and measuring everything out, to the point where we will grind a crank specifically to the size of a bearing housing, because a couple of, it just gets everything exactly spot on, even down to sort of microns. measuring everything and grinding each journal to suit the tolerance that will run perfectly with the selected bearing for that rod or that main journal.
Yeah, and that would be entirely pointless if you couldn't make sure you're repeating that same phase. It's so critical. It's I wouldn't be building an engine with ARP main studs and plastic gauge without. Well, I just wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
You'd be working far harder to make sure that's absolutely correct. And that, you might find that you put that together and you get away with it for a bit, but it may last 20,000 miles, and then that'll be it. Whereas if you've measured everything and it's perfect, then it's going to last 100,000 miles. It's a huge difference, and also performance. Not having a consistent oil film essentially is generating restriction or friction, or it's inconsistent and it's not going to help you make power.
I'm not sure if Ash is watching, but if he is worried about slightly too much clearance, we don't stop him at the moment, but we should be have some landing in the country soon on an ACL standard size, but with sort of 1,000th of an inch lesser clearance, which will take you down into that BMW spec. So 25 microns as you mentioned. So if you want to get set on them and order, just drop us an email and we can get you sorted out.
Yeah, we had another question. We had a couple of questions. Again,
of course. Oh, sorry. You were so quick, Evan. Steve Empson's watching, saying the weather is sunny. It's a bit misleading.
Not
Steve, it's just cloudy. It was raining half an hour ago.
Yeah.
Steve, of course, picked up his M50 turbo engine last weekend.
Yeah.
Weekend before last.
They all blur into one.
Thursday again tomorrow. But great to see you, Steve. And obviously, the car looks cracking. Excited to get your exhaust all sort of sorted and to get that car out on track because it's going to be an animal.
Yeah, big time. We asked questions via Instagram. Toby Byrne asked what the best looking F80 is on the street.
Toby's?
Yeah.
I think that's,
so Toby's F80 was with us. It's actually on a video we did on YouTube. If you flick back to our channel when this is over, we did a quick sound comparison of 4 generations of M3, as well as just a very quick walking through them. So Toby's car is a Nostin yellow F80 M3, but it's had satin PPF over the top.
Oh, I'm quite a fan.
Yeah,
I think it looks quite improved. Quite distinctive. That's a cool car.
Yeah, very. So that's now running Litco L640 turbos, high flow turbo inlets, decat downpipes, one of our single mid pipes, K&N filters, full crank hub fix.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it engine side. And a full, it's running our 2-piece brake discs on the front, EBC Blue Stuff pads.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. But it's just a really, really nicely done car.
Yes.
It looks perfect and it goes up stink. It's a quick car. So go and check out the videos of that, sort of revving basically against Dave's car actually, and an E46 M3 that we've got here and an E93 M3 we've got here. That was the odd one out, but it's just cool seeing the age of the engine.
Shame we didn't have an E30 here. Could have had a 4.14 to sort of compare. 4.6, 4.6, 8, turbocharged 6.
But really cool. And interesting as well to see some of the feedback. A few people actually quite liking the newer stuff. A lot of guys on newer cars liking the older stuff.
All a bit of a mixed bag, really.
What's your favourite out of the lot?
Dave's.
Yeah.
Dave's car just sounds insane. I'm so excited, man.
Yeah,
it really is great.
Yeah, big time. I should really dig out. We did some footage of the car overtaking.
We did.
Honda C90.
Yeah, the Honda C90 mobile photography studio.
Yeah, I was driving at the time, and I have to admit it wasn't the most difficult overtake I've ever done.
I think I was putting 42 at the time.
But this thing just sounds amazing from the front with that airbox. It sounds amazing from the back with the exhaust. Yeah. And it just sounds so sweet. It's I can't say enough about it. Just love it.
Yeah.
So onward. Our Kelsey1 said E46 Coupe needs some subframe work. Could you give me a rough figure? No. So we, as you know, if you're watching this, you'll know we specialise in engine work really. Obviously we do various other bits, but We run a very clean workshop because of the engines that are around. Engines are all built in a clean room separately anyway. That is a whole nother level of clean. But where we do have engines in cars in the workshop apart, it's not really something we want to be grinding a load of unseal off. Off cars and whatnot to do subframe reinforcement work. So we don't do that. There are plenty of people out there that will do it. Reddish Motorsport have to be the number one really. There are others, don't get me wrong, but I think they've been doing it for the longest and the best known, so well worth having a chat with them. We do keep plates and bushes and various other bits and bobs in stock, so if we can help, just drop us a message and we get you sorted with bits at least, and then you can turn up at whichever specialist you choose with all the bits ready to go. Job done. Yeah. Or I'm sure they want to supply them, but who knows? But reddish plates are the ones to have. So if we can help you out with those, just drop us a message. I think
is that all the questions.
That's about it.
We're pretty quiet on the old comments tonight, to be honest, guys. But obviously, if you want to sneak something in quickly before we depart for the evening, then you're more than welcome.
Apologies for the dog howling in the background if that's coming across. Whatever reason, she's not happy.
Did you feed the dog?
I did. She has eaten.
Because I make that noise when I'm hungry.
We haven't eaten.
Yeah, we should.
It's been a mad day. Yeah.
Anything else? What have we got in the workshop at the moment?
I was going to discuss donut of the week, if I'm honest.
The donut of the week.
What is this week's donut of the week?
We've had a couple since last time we saw you. Steve can obviously chime in because he was here on a Friday, so actually, he had the delight of trying a donut.
I would really like to know his feedback because Friday's donut was a white Kinder Bueno donut, and it was heavenly. Yeah, it was definitely up there. So hopefully you're still watching, Steve. You can tell us what you thought of that donut. This week, I think you're actually on the calendar, aren't you? Yeah. So our donut of the week from the bakery van that comes around every morning is on a Friday, and it's been inputted into it's Twix next week, I can tell you that. Yeah, I have, unfortunately. Rocky Road. The Rocky Road. I'm very excited for the Rocky Road donuts. Basically, it's a donut piled high with loads of other cakes and frosting and sauces. It's quite elaborate and quite fattening. Yeah, I'd hate to see a calorie count on one of those. Yeah, I just don't want to know. Only happens if we crack through all the work. A job perk is a donut. No, much enjoyed last week's Kinder Bueno. But let's go on to what's in the workshop because we do have quite a nice mixture of M3s. So we've got Dave's E36, obviously M3 Evo, which is leaving us tomorrow, sadly. Which is a track car, out track car. We've also got another E36 M3, which is Paul Mensley's car. So if you go on Instagram and have a look for Paul Mensley, he has got insane RS500 Cosworth race car. He put quite a cool photo of it yesterday, I think. Battling with old Burley. Really cool car. I believe he's got a few cars, but that's one of his that I think essentially it's just really tired. Haven't really seen a lot of daylight. A fair few bushes, brake pipes, fuel lines. Unfortunately, it's pretty much finished and it went away for tracking just to get all the new suspension goodies bits. And the 25-year-old bonnet pull cable decided it quite frankly had enough. A few more bits to do on there, updating all the bonnet release mechanisms and whatnot. But it's got some nice Millway suspension bits on it as well. So the idea of that car is, he's got a race car, but he wants something that he can drive to the Nürburgring, enjoy on track as a bit of a track car, and then drive back again. So it's got Millway uniball trailing arm bushes, Millway rear camber arms. It's got some perfect black series from the trial arm bushes. BC Racing coilovers, of course, all round. And all done with relative comfort in mind. It's a full interior. Techno Violet. Love it. It is a cool colour. It's a cool car. It's a cool car. It's probably one of the most original E36 M3s that we've had in. We generally tend to see track cars and race cars and whatnot. Obviously Ian's E28, I kind of was going in age order missed that out. But
the engine will be progressing pretty soon.
Yeah, we had actually had a couple of comments and emails from a guy whose name was not evident anywhere, asking how it was going because he's planning a similar build. If you look back through our Instagram, we had issues with basic components that just haven't been good enough.
Yeah,
it's gone on and on.
Yeah,
and on.
It's just non-stop, unfortunately, at the moment with Ian, just trying to get the best bits. So Ian's, it's sort of times you feel like, it'd be great if we could just throw it together and not care. But when we strive for the best and want everything to go out the door absolutely perfect, we can't settle on substandard components.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that means just waiting for bits or sending bits back or sourcing parts that are just better.
Yeah. We don't have the conscience to let it out the door, and when it fails, which it would have done, say, well, you supplied the bits, it's our name on it, and it's got to be the best. And actually, that ties in with some conversation we're having this week of customers asking to provide their own bits, and we're not unreasonable people. It was a chat, and all perfectly nice chat. Don't misunderstand it, but asking if you supply bits, and the problem is Ian supplied bits, and he wasn't trying to be cheap with it. He wasn't trying to do anything the wrong way. He was under the impression he was doing it the right way, and just has contacts, wants to use them to source bits from the States and various other places. And actually, they turn out to have cost so much time because we then have to source the parts that we know do work. And things like that. And that's why we really do. We keep a huge stock upstairs of engine components and various car components, and we like to rely on that because we know it works. If you've seen perhaps what we do and think, I'd rather supply a different brand of bearings or rods, or
the reason we fit those bearings is because
we found out the hard way.
Yeah, we found out the hard way. We know what works. We measure everything. We measure it twice. Yeah, we know what the best components are. If there's something listed on our website, that's because we've spent hours and hours trawling over the best parts, fitting the best parts, fitting the not best parts. They're the ones that aren't listed, or we don't sell because they're no good.
It's difficult as well. The time thing. It's although we do our best to keep stock of various bits. The M30 is an older engine. We don't deal with it quite so much. So finding those right bits. Actually, if we'd have had a few weeks warning and had discussed things first, we could have had those in. Whereas now we're in a situation where actually some bits aren't available and we haven't had no warning of it. No one's done anything wrong in that. It's just that's the way we do things for a reason. It'll all be worth it. Ian's car's going to be.
It's going to be cool. Let's drive out and that'll be good fun.
It's it'll be nice as well to. Well, go all out. It's a full engine bay job, really. It's all
new brake lines under it, and there's been quite a lot of sort of underside of the car's been re-undersealed and a few rusty patches cut out and fixed. So it should be. Obviously, the top end was done a couple of years ago. Bodywork wise was all refreshed, so it's going to be a min car when it's done. Very excited.
That's just cool. It's got all the right bits on it. Moving on, so we covered the E36s, 2 of those at the moment. 2 E46s. Actually, we've got sort of 2 of everything. Until this morning. So we've got Martin's E46 M3 here, which had an SMG fault, which, unlike the usual SMG faults, quite often they'll knock themselves into neutral, and that'll be that. His locked into first, so that was a bit of an interesting one getting that off a trailer when it arrived. But we've got wheel dollies and stuff. So once it was half off or mostly off, we were there already. So that's coming together, all fixed. Various electrical gremlins going on that are sorted. All we've got left is bonnet catches. So the car drives perfectly, but one of the bonnet latches thinks it's open when it's just old and the switch install's broken. So that's,
unfortunately, a bit of a pain in the job. They're not exactly a drop-in part. Bumper all off and whatnot to get those switches out. But likewise, it'll be a nice car when it's all done.
It's difficult as well. SMG's quite often thought of a huge expensive thing, and it can be, but often there are little problems that add up to big problems. If you know what you're doing with them, then you can get them fixed.
We've obviously got Murray's E46 outside as well.
That's a nice car.
A bit of me, that is.
Yeah.
I'm quite a fan of that one.
I think that's another one you've fallen in love with.
Yeah. So that sort of came in as just a Vanos check and big end bearing check. He bought the car having thought it had been done by someone previous. And
it's the worst big end bearing.
Yeah, something strange. Someone had been in there before. Not done something quite right. But yeah, pretty close to the mass failure really on number 6. Bearing wise, and then head gasket wise also showed a massive load of problems with leak down.
Hooked up the leak down tester, and you could so quickly hear it rushing out another cylinder,
pouring out the plug hole,
really quite bad
next to it. So sure enough, cylinder head gasket had gone between 5 and 6, and 1 and 2. So it was head off for that, and so engine really has had
a
the
chain
big
guide
3
as well.
Yeah, chain guides in 2 pieces.
Standard E46, and pretty much all of them we see that haven't been touched before. There's a small upper chain guide on the exhaust side that snaps in half. So it's now got a solid nylon B-Sun Systems one in there. Our usual array of doing the job properly, basically.
And obviously fully caged and some lovely bits underneath. And car's heading off to Australia now. Murray moved to Scotland to.
Yeah, I think he's quite jealous. I've speaking to him earlier, and we're road testing it, and he's asked us to do plenty of miles because he wants to. Be absolutely sure that anything that can be done while it's here to make it perfect before it goes over is done. And I think it's quite jealous that we're driving it. But once it's out there, I think he's going to have a really good time with it. It's a really nice bit of kit.
And then moving on, we've got Carl's E93 M3, so obviously a V8, which is always good to have. Echoing the Sussex countryside with the roar of V8 in the morning is good fun.
Yeah, especially that one's got a Super Sprint back box on it already. And then we're adding sports cats to it, e-Venturi intake. He has got a plenum on order, which is coming a little bit later on, so that'll be done as a second job.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a transformation on that one.
K-Sport, big brakes.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
A few Millway bits, new front under tray. A lot.
Big old list of bits. So
keep
an eye on Instagram and whatnot as we slowly get it bolted up with bigger and better parts.
Yeah, and only 34,000 miles on that one.
Yeah.
So car's quite wisely having the big end bearings and bolts done as well. Which sat on the ramp with the oil draining oven now for that to be done tomorrow. ACL bearings going into that. ARP bolts. Yeah, just a full array really. It's one of those nice jobs that comes in and a big list of well chosen parts. It's going to drive out being really quite a different car. So very much look forward to getting that done and out. We've got Ash's F83 M3 outside as well. It's all done, but being collected tomorrow. So that's had a crank hub, which I don't know if the crank hub is anywhere around. There's a photo on our Instagram, which I've never seen it before. Where as anyone knows, with those you don't have a keyway on the crank. It's essentially bolted together, and there's friction washers in there that hold the timing gear and everything to the crank and stop it slipping. Which unfortunately isn't really up to the job when you're tuning them and fast downshifts and things like that. And I've never seen one that's actually sort of chewed up the washers so badly. So I think, the only explanation is that crank hub has actually been working its way loose, essentially.
Yeah, ticking time bomb, really.
Yeah, it's quite scary. But now we're sorted. VTT crank hub, none of that horrible drilling a crank.
Yeah.
All sorted, good to go. That car's got pure, I believe, stage 2 or stage 2 plus turbos. It is fast, and all working happily, and big time peace of mind with that one. So look forward to giving that back.
Very much so.
And we had Toby's car as mentioned, but that went this morning, so that's off the mapping. That's about us for the minute.
That is us.
Only those few cars. It's been busy, but going in the right direction.
Definitely so.
Getting cars out the door. Lots of happy customers, which is what we like. Obviously, we work pretty much flat out on the admin side of things, quoting everyone for jobs. If you do want a quote putting together for your car, just drop us an email. It's the best way. We get plenty of phone calls, and unfortunately, we're so flat out. We've usually got 5 quotes on the go each at any one time. So, please just drop us an email, reg number, chassis number, whatever, however you want to do it, exactly what you want done. Technical questions, whatever. We're always happy to help. And then we get you sorted and booked in. We are booked up until pretty much all of July now. Do be patient. We make every effort to make sure everything goes out absolutely perfect and as best as it can be. And as far as we're concerned, better than anyone else is doing it. So we'd like to think we're worth the wait. But do just be patient with us. We do our best.
I'm sure we could maybe squeeze that in, Joel.
Oh, Joel, very happily. So Joel's got a 991 GT3 3.8, so the sort of slightly earlier car with the 9,000 RPM red line or whatever it was.
A very fruity motor.
Which sort of threatened to pop over in a couple of times. I'm quite curious.
I mean, really, Joel, we don't even know if you own it, so you're gonna have to pop in.
There you go, 991.1. Really keen to see that car. Joel's also got a cool Marina Blue F80 M3, which is one of the first few F80 M3s that started coming here. A little while back, and continues to visit for various bits and bobs. So cool pair of cars. I think that just about does us, really.
That concludes another monthly Q&A session.
If they're a bit like tonight, with the bearing clearances, things like that, if you've got a larger topic you want us to discuss, don't be afraid to ask that question that is either seems small but could lead on to a big technical explanation, or you're well aware that we're going to have to spend some time talking about it. We're more than happy to. There's a hell of a lot to engine building and various other bits that we do, and if you don't know, then you're not aware of the mistake you're about to make potentially. So more than happy to help, or obviously we've got all the equipment here to do that job properly.
Because actually we can't teach you to build an engine over a video.
No.
If you do have doubts.
No, there's
Book it in and we'll build it.
It's with engine build wise, we're flat out. Actually, we haven't even discussed the engine building side of things at the moment, but S65s, N54s, S50s, S54s, you name it, it's all in the build room. There's plenty more to come. So keep an eye on Instagram and Facebook, and there's been a bit of a hiatus with our YouTube channel just because we have been so busy, but we're sort of gearing back up again. Just make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything we've got coming. We've got some cool little bits and bobs, maybe shorter videos than before. Some nice little snippets of what's going on.
Great.
And that ends that.
We will see you in June.